Our text for today is taken from the first chapter of John's Gospel. We have two verses, verse 1 and verse 14. John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then we drop down to verse 14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. And may God bless the reading of his word today. In the winter of 1776, a garrison of British troops were headquartered in Trenton, New Jersey for that winter. Now that winter was a very harsh and hard winter, very extreme. The temperatures were much lower than usual, and the snow and ice was much more than usual. But the British troops, they were warm and dry, full of food and full of rum, living in the fine homes of Trenton, New Jersey. Across the Delaware River from Trenton was George Washington and his Continental Army. But the British weren't worried about them at all. They wouldn't dare attack. They had very little ammunition, very little food, very little shelter, even very little clothing. Men were deserting every day and going back home. The Delaware River was clogged with ice. It was sleeting and snowing. There was a blizzard going on. And on top of all of that, it was Christmas. It was December the 25th. Now you add all that up and there's no way the Americans would dare attack. And so because of that, all day and all night of December the 25th, the British celebrated Christmas with lots of eating and drinking and dancing and partying. But at about 4 a.m. the next morning, on December 26th, the British troops were awakened from their hangover by a loud racket. The racket was Washington and his army attacking. During that Christmas night, Washington and his men had crossed the icy Delaware River to attack the British. Now, to say that this was a Christmas surprise to those British soldiers would be an understatement. It wasn't a Christmas surprise, it was a Christmas shock. A Christmas shock that resulted in a very important victory in the colony's struggle for their freedom. Well, as big as that Christmas surprise was to those British soldiers, what happened back at the first Christmas was a far greater surprise to the world. And today we're going to look at just a few of the Christmas surprises. First, we want to look at the informers. How did God choose to inform the world of the birth and the arrival of the Savior? Did he call a press conference in the Oval Office Garden? Did he have a special bulletin sent out over all the networks? Did he make a special speech before the United Nations? Did he post it on his Facebook? No. How did he do it? He sent angels to talk to people. Am I kidding you? No, I'm not. He sent angels to talk to people. And who were the people he talked to? Elizabeth, Zacharias, Mary, Joseph, and the shepherds. In that day and time, a bunch of nobodies. Zacharias was a country preacher. Elizabeth was his wife. Mary was a teenage girl. Joseph was a common carpenter. And the shepherds, well, they were smelly shepherds. You couldn't have found more nobodies to tell the world about the arrival of the Savior. And yet that's who we're told, and they were told by angels. angels talking to people. When was the last time you talked to an angel? I didn't ask you when was the last time you talked to a devil. When was the last time you talked to an angel? Well, angels came to these people to inform the world of the birth of Jesus. Now that's a Christmas surprise. Secondly, we have a Christmas surprise of the incentive. What did God use to motivate, lead, and guide the wise men to continue their journey to find that child? What was the incentive that he placed before them? Did he tell those men, now when you find that child, you're going to find a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow? When you find that child, you're going to find a fountain of youth. When you find that child, you're going to find a lost city or buried treasure. You find that child and you're going to find wealth and health and fame and fortune. No. No. Their incentive was a star up in the sky. What we look up and see every night. A star in the sky. He told those wise men, fellas, you follow that star. Wherever it leads, you follow. Wherever it takes you, that's where you go. Doesn't matter where it takes you, how long, how far, you follow that star. Now picture the scene. You've got a bunch of grown men traipsing around the deserts of the Middle East, and they're always looking up. Because that's all they've got to go by. That star in the sky. What an incentive. What a surprise. And then we have the Christmas surprise of the infant. How did God choose to bring the Messiah to this earth? As a king? Riding on a throne carried by angels? No. As a mighty warrior riding at the front of a mighty army? No. I know. He had him fly through the air, wearing a cape, the wind blowing through his hair, and a big S on his chest. Right? Wrong. God brought the Messiah into the world in the form of a tiny baby. I see a little baby back there on the back row. That's how he delivered the Messiah. A tiny little infant baby. Am I serious? Yes, I am. And on top of that, the baby was born to a virgin teenage girl. Folks, this story is getting crazier by the minute. But it's true. God sent the Savior to this earth in the person of a tiny little infant. Now that's a Christmas surprise. And then we have the surprise of the indignity. Well, okay, if God's going to send the Messiah as a tiny little baby, then surely that baby will be born in the biggest, best, finest, fanciest, most advanced hospital in the world, with the team of the world's greatest doctors there to deliver him. Right? Wrong. God's Messiah was born in a stinking, dirty stable among a bunch of stinking, dirty animals. He was delivered by the rough, dirty hands of a common carpenter. I mean, who else was there? And then with those dirty, rough, calloused hands, that carpenter laid that baby in a dirty, stinking animal feed trough that was filled with you know what and who knows what. No way. No way the Messiah would ever be born in such squalor and indignity. Yes, way. Way, for this is exactly the way that the Messiah was delivered. What indignity. What a Christmas surprise. And then we have the Christmas surprise of the insanity and inhumanity. Now, what could possibly be insane or inhuman about such a story of a Savior arriving? Well, this is where good old King Herod comes into the story. King Herod showed his insanity by being afraid of a tiny little baby. Again, I'm picking on the little baby back there. How many of us are afraid of that baby? None of us. And then he showed his inhumanity by butchering tiny little babies. Imagine, here's a grown man afraid of a tiny little baby. Here's a powerful ruler that everybody was afraid of him, and he's afraid of a tiny little baby. So afraid that he butchers all the little baby boys in that area. What a surprise. What a sad, bad surprise, but still a surprise. But now we come to the biggest Christmas surprise of them all. The most shocking Christmas occurrence. It's called the Incarnation. When I was a little boy growing up in church, at Christmas time I'd hear the pastor use that word. And you know what I'd think of? Milk. Carnation. I mean, you know, I was a little punk kid. I didn't know any better. He'd say incarnation. I'd think, okay. Little baby, milk, you know. But that's not what the incarnation is, no. The incarnation is given to us in those two verses we read. Who did God send to this earth to save man? Now, he's decided to save man, but who's he going to send to do the job? I know. He'll send one of his angels. I mean, who better than an angel? Floating down with a halo and a harp. And Gabriel was already on the scene. So just use an angel. No, he didn't use an angel. I know. Abraham, the father of faith. The man from whom he started his chosen people. Abraham, that's who he sent. No. I know. The mighty Moses. If Moses could deliver the people out of the Egyptian slavery to the promised land, then God could use him to deliver man from his sin. He sent Moses, right? No. I know. He sent the giant slayer, David. If David could handle Goliath, then surely he could be the Savior. No, he couldn't. No. I got it. Elijah. Elijah never died. Remember? He took a chariot ride to heaven. He'd be perfect. But no, he didn't send Elijah. Well, he must have sent Daniel. I mean, here's a man the lions couldn't even meet. He sent Daniel, right? No. Well, who in the world did God send to save man? Himself. Himself. Verse 1, the Word was God. Verse 14, the Word, which was God, became flesh and dwelt among us. Almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-eternal, all-everything God became human, flesh, and bone, lived among us here on earth, died for us here on earth, and arose from the grave for us here on earth in order that we can be saved. God coming to earth. God becoming a human. God doing all of this himself and doing it all in this surprising, shocking way. This, my friends, is the greatest and grandest Christmas surprise of them all. God becoming a man. Yes, Washington crossing the Delaware was a big Christmas surprise. But God crossing the canyon between heaven and earth was a far greater surprise. And while Washington's Christmas surprise helped win the colony's freedom from the British, God's Christmas surprise did win our freedom. Our freedom from sin, Satan, and his hell. This Christmas, I don't know if you've been surprised or not. You may have, you may not have. But I know this. Your best Christmas surprise came 2,000 years ago. Your best Christmas surprise is Jesus Christ. And if you've never taken him and accepted him as your Savior, I can't think of a better time to do it than on the day we celebrate his coming. He came for you. He came for you. What a surprise. What a shock. Aren't you glad our God is full of surprises? I sure am. I sure am.